So good morning and welcome to Broker Briefing, Australia's premier digital platform for brokers and investors, live streaming video presentations from ASX listed companies. I'm Jane Morgan and thank you for joining me today for our October investor webinar, live streaming across Zoom, YouTube, brokerbriefing.com, Twitter and Facebook. Today we're joined by four companies: Basin Energy, Parkway Corporate, 5E Advanced Materials and Alicanto Minerals. So up first, we are joined by Basin Energy with the ASX ticker code BSN, a uranium explorer with projects in the Athabasca Basin of Canada. The company listed on the ASX this week after raising $9 million. To tell us more, today I am joined by Managing Director, Pete Morehouse. Good morning, Pete.
Good morning, Jane, and good morning, everybody. Thanks a lot, Broker Briefing, for having us on today. It's great to be here to present the opportunity of Basin and give you a little bit of an update on the company and our plans for the coming few months. So Jane provided a quick overview there of Basin, but Basin is freshly formed ASX listing, ticker code BSN. We went live at the start of this week, trading on the ASX. The company holds interests in assets in the Athabasca. We've got 3 projects which we are earning into through our joint venture partner, Canalaska, and provides investors with an opportunity to invest in pure play uranium exploration in one of the leading jurisdictions and environments for uranium mineralization globally. So without further ado, we'll step into the presentation. If I can get you to click through, please, Jane. We have our competence persons and our disclaimer. I advise you all to take a look at the website and have a look at that, and we'll go into the main body of the presentation. So why invest in Basin Energy? Now, this can be summarized, in my opinion, in 3 key points. Those points are the projects, the people and the relationships involved in the company, and the commodity and timing. We'll dig a little bit deeper into that and provide you with a bit of an overview as to why we believe that. For the projects, the jurisdiction we're operating in is the heartland of uranium production. We're in Saskatchewan in northern Canada, which is continually ranked in the top few for the Fraser Institute Attractiveness for Mining Investment Index. It is a jurisdiction which has had an operating uranium mining industry for some 65 years and has been continually in the top 35 years, has been one of the top 3 producers. And the projects are all nearby to existing infrastructure. So this is not an area which is it's a developing industry. This is an industry which is well understood with a clear framework for exploring. The projects, so that's jurisdiction. We can look at technical as well. We've got the right geology. We're near metal. All of our opportunities are nearby to existing resources and resisting mines. And importantly, the exploration strategies are well defined and well understood. We're not looking at super conceptual ideas here. This area has been explored. Our areas have not, but they have a strategy in place which is gated with clear pathways to reach exploration success. So that was our projects point. People and relationships. Now, we have a board in place of highly experienced executives from the uranium sector, so specifically the junior sector, and that's with a technical and with a corporate background. So that's the board, but critically, and perhaps a differentiator for Basin, is our joint venture partner with Canalaska and what they bring to the table. So Canalaska will be our operator for the first 2 years on the ground. They have been operating in the basin for a considerable period of time. They have in-country team of great expertise. They have access to a formidable database and knowledge of how these systems work, relationships in place with stakeholders, with contractors, and they have recent exploration success. Now, having them on the ground and as part of our team means that we're ready to hit the ground running. There's no impediment on getting exploration happening, so we can move through this quickly. Now, finally, the commodity. We won't go into the uranium market fundamentals today, but we personally believe that the uranium space is a very exciting space to be in for the midterm future here. We believe that uranium and nuclear will play a critical part in the energy mix as we move forward the next few years, and this is only exacerbated by the current instability with the power sector throughout Europe. Now, if I can get you to flick to the next slide, please, Jane. Thank you. A little bit of an overview for some of you who may not be familiar with the Athabasca, and to provide why we're so excited about this part of the world and why it continues to be one of the premier places for uranium explorers. Just to start, a very fundamental high-level cross-section there. This shows uranium mineralization stylized against geology. We've got two different styles of summarized styles of deposits. We've got what we call unconformity, which is sitting at the unconformity, which is a contact between a sandstone and our basement lithologies. So that's the likes of Cigar Lake, McArthur River, some of the phenomenally big deposits which have been known about for some time now. You know, McArthur River is 675, almost 75 million pounds at almost 17% uranium. These are grades which are rarely seen elsewhere in the world. Cigar Lake, 350 million pounds, just shy of over 15% uranium. So that's sitting at the unconformity between the sandstone and the basement. We also have basement-hosted opportunities. Now, some of these have been known about for some time, but a bit more of a spotlight's been brought onto them in recent years, partly due to the success of NextGen Energy, the work at Arrow, sitting on a phenomenal deposit, great work to have discovered and to be developing that, 300 million pounds at 4.6, and the work at Triple R. So the take-home point for this, two slightly different styles. Basin has opportunities of both unconformity and basement hosted. But what I'd really like people to appreciate is even over the last 12 years, where we've had a relatively slow time in the uranium sector, uranium spot price has been depressed, there's still been some work going on in this part of the world, and we've still achieved exploration success. People have found things. Arrow was discovered, and they provided significant shareholder value. They took the share price from 25 cents, doubled it overnight with the discovery drill hole, and within a couple of years we're sitting at $4. So building companies, turning shareholder value through exploration success. The most recent deposit resource that I'm aware of that's been put out is now one of the highest grade in the world. Still quite small, but will be bigger, I'm sure. The work by ISO Energy at Hurricane, it's almost 50 million pounds of 34.5% uranium, which is again phenomenal sales of mineralization. And then relevant to us, next door to our long strike from our North Millennium and Marshall projects, I'll tell you about in a minute. Alaska have just had some good success. That's our JV partner. And adjacent to our Geikie project, the work from 92 Energy and Baseload have also had good recent exploration success. So in summary, even a downturn, significant opportunity for returns to shareholders. We believe now we're seeing a much stronger uranium sector. Having the tenure that we have puts us in a very strong position. Can I go to the next slide, please, Jane? Thank you. Just a quick geographic overview to see how we sit in relation to some of those major opportunities. North Millennium and Marshall, we're about 7 kilometers from Cameco's Millennium deposit. It's over 100 million pounds, almost 4% uranium, about 40 k's from McArthur River. So all in the eastern portion of the basin. The Geikie project is just to the eastern fringes. We're adjacent to the GMZ and AKO recent discovery. So getting some good hits out of there, 43 meters at 0.6, 31 at 0.9. Pretty exciting part of the world to be in. Traditionally quite overlooked from an exploration perspective for uranium, but we'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment. Next slide, please, Jane. And again. So a quick high-level overview of North Millennium. Why we're so excited about that and what the plan for that is. We'll touch on Geikie and then we will close it off. So North Millennium, situated 7 k's, as we mentioned, from a phenomenal uranium opportunity. But to understand why we're excited, we have to understand a little bit about Millennium. Millennium is hosted on a northeast basement trending graphitic unit. Now this is shown up in geophysics quite beautifully. EM maps it nicely in a traditional way of exploring for these deposits. The uranium is brought in from a north-south fault. Now, Cameco referred to this as their mother fault, and that's what's brought in this 100 million pounds. We believe from the geophysics we've got, we can follow that fault straight north, and where we intersect our tenement area, we find the next northeast trending graphitic basement unit. So this again is mapped out by EM, historic EM, it's quite early stage EM, but we see the same response that you see at Millennium. So quite clearly, that's not a bad place to be. You've got a fault that you know is carrying a lot of mineralization, and you've got a repetition of the base unit that that's hosted in. Add on to that, there's been no drilling in this target or this conductor. To the south, away from the conductor, there's been a little bit of drilling where we see what we call periphery mineralization. We see base metals, nickel, copper, cobalt, a bit of zinc. So we see this as a pretty exciting place to be exploring. Adding even further weight to that, recent exploration success by Alaska, 9 meters at 2.4%, a long strike to the northeast, makes this a really exciting prospect. So I'll just skip on 2 slides, please, Jane. And very briefly, Geikie. So Geikie is on the eastern fringes of the basin, traditionally not a lot of uranium exploration work. The ground is covered by about 10 or 15 meters of glacial cover, which is enough to mask a big radiometric response. What we do have is some historic geophysics, which shows some beautiful structural settings for potential mineralization. We know we've got the right rock types, which host basement stratigraphy, basement-hosted mineralization. And reviewing historic base metal exploration, we find uranium floating around its surface almost 0.25%. Now, add the additional weight of the exploration success in similar geological settings next door at 92 and at baseload, this becomes a pretty exciting prospect for us. So we've got half a dozen drill targets already identified for here. The company has just flown radiometric and magnetic survey, which we hope to get the results for in the next 24 hours. And we will be doing some further airborne EM later on this year before drilling the program in early Q1 2022, sorry, as 2023. So Q1 next year will be our first drilling program, and that will be at Geikie. So we also have the Marshall project, which has similar fundamentals, but I am very conscious of time. In summary, we're a company with exploration assets, all with exploration strategies in place. We're on the ground, we're actively exploring in one of the most phenomenal terrains for uranium mineralization globally, with a team in place to deliver some successful exploration programs. So with that, I think that's my 10 minutes. Thank you very much, Jane.
Pete, thank you so much for the great presentation, and again, congratulations on the recent listing this week. We had a question come through that you actually did just answer, but I might ask it anyway, just in case I've missed it. So with the airborne survey commencing or commenced at Geikie, when are we expecting the results coming through from there?
Yeah, okay, so this was actually flown, we managed to pay this at IPO, so the funds were transferred at IPO, so the data will be released to us in the next 24 hours. We'll want a little bit of time to distill this information, so I'd hope to get news flow out late next week or early the following week with how much that affects our targeting criteria for that area.
Wonderful. And Pete, I know we didn't have time to go through the rest of the projects, but what are you most excited about now that you're listed on the boards?
I mean, these are 3 phenomenal projects and opportunities in this part of the world. Having this tenure where every exploration opportunity could produce the next MacArthur River or the next Cigar Lake is a great position to be in. Line that with where we are on the sector at the moment and the interest that we're seeing in uranium. We're looking forward to moving this forward. Personally, I think that the North Millennium Project has got a drill opportunity there, which I can't wait to put a hole in. We need to see what's going on with those geophysical features. And Geikie, from an emerging area, the eastern side of the basin, which, as I said in the Prezo, has traditionally been relatively overlooked, I think will produce the next discovery. I'm hoping it's at Geikie, I'm hoping it's in our tenure, and we'll be doing our best to explore that. But developing that story for these basement-hosted mineralization on the eastern side is pretty exciting.
Well, Pete, yes, exciting times ahead, and we look forward to hearing further updates. But thank you for joining us.
Perfect. Thank you, Jane. Thanks, Broker Briefing.
So up next, we have a presentation from Parkway Corporate with the ASX ticker code PWN, an advanced industrial water treatment technology company with a key addressable market being the mining and resources sector. To tell us more, today I'm joined by Group Managing Director and CEO, Bahe Ozkamak. Good morning.
Good morning, Jane. You can hear me okay?
I can, yes. I might get you to make your screen full size if you'd like.
We got rid of that echo?
Yes, no, that's okay. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfect.
I might just get you to go full screen on this one though, if you just got to file and. Wonderful. I'll let you jump into it.
Great. Thanks, Jane. Good morning, everybody, particularly to our existing shareholders. My name's Bahe Ozkamak, Group Managing Director at Parkway, and we're building an industrial water treatment company. So I'll be providing an introduction to our company this morning. So during the presentation, we'll make sort of a number of statements that could be considered forward-looking statements. So encourage all investors to acquaint themselves with the forward-looking statements. So in terms of the presentation outline, we provide an initial introduction to our company, the problem we're seeking to address, which is water and wastewater related challenges, why we're taking a technology-based approach to addressing some of these challenges, as well as some corporate developments at our company. So we have a few slides to get through this morning, but this information is also available at our website, pwnps.com, under the Investor Relations section. So I'll fly through just the key slides for the purposes of this presentation. So we're a small company. We have a $20 million market capitalization. Our top 20 shareholders own approximately half the company. We're well funded at the moment, and importantly, we have an experienced team. We have a clear strategy, what we're out to achieve, and we've recently been generating some significant momentum, particularly in the technology part of our business, and look forward to providing a bit of details on that throughout the presentation. So to start off with the problem we're seeking to fix, so I guess it was good to sort of follow up from Pete's presentation. So I think we all understand the importance of mining and the energy sector as well. And these extractive industries, unfortunately, leave some legacies, so and hasn't been great in the past. So part of our focus is, can we find ways to improve the sustainability of these extractive industries, so predominantly energy and the mining sectors. So that's the problem which we're seeking to fix. Just in terms of, by way of background, I think we all understand the importance of electrification to meeting decarbonisation requirements, objectives, so I won't do the deep dive on that during this presentation. But that electrification process, of course, requires minerals, what's commonly been termed critical minerals, and we obviously need a whole lot more mines to supply these critical minerals. So that's those who work or invest in the mining sector would be familiar with some of these battery and critical minerals. So that's an area that's growing very rapidly, and we need a whole lot more mines. And unfortunately, there's a little bit of resistance to being able to develop more mines. And these mines often require a whole lot of water, and often, whether it's copper or lithium, many of these mines are located in arid environments, so they need access to groundwater, surface water, and often there's competing uses for these water sources. So this provides a little bit of tension from a sustainability perspective. So there's somewhat of a challenge to be able to develop more of these mines to be able to provide the critical minerals we need. And unfortunately, the legacy of the mining industry, not always, of course, sort of worked in the mining industry for a long time. There's a lot of great operators out there, but unfortunately, the legacy in many instances, whether it's sort of depleting groundwater, some of the stuff that's happening in Chile, for example, large copper lithium mines, or even just the legacies in terms of acid mine drainage, tailings, hasn't been great. So in terms of social license, we think there's a real challenge here to bring new mines to market. And similarly, still on the extractive industry, is very similar in the energy sector. And I've chosen a few examples here: the tar sands in Canada, and sort of a tailings, a waste brine pond in Queensland related to gas production, in this case, coal seam gas production. So these are significant environmental legacies that sort of create some challenges. So from our perspective, being able to achieve sustainability is more than net zero. We need to be able to deal with water and wastewater related challenges, and we think now's the time to act, and that's what we're focused on as a company. There's a relationship between energy and water that is beyond the scope of this discussion, but there's some background information on the presentation. And if we look at sort of Fitch Credit Ratings Agency, they view sort of some of these water challenges being the single biggest risk to bringing new mines to produce the critical minerals we need. So this is a significant issue. We need more mines. They need to be more sustainable. We need to address water challenges. That's really the challenge facing the whole industry, the whole supply chain, actually. And from a Parkway perspective, we're developing technology-based solutions. We think that's the smartest and most efficient way to address some of these challenges. And in the presentation, we provide a little bit of an introduction into what these technologies are and some of the traction we've been generating recently. So these are all very large addressable markets. Unfortunately, less than 5% of wastewater generated by industry is recycled at the moment. There's some significant addressable markets. Whilst we provide some solutions to industrial and sort of municipal applications, our focus is very much the mining and energy sector. And we have a portfolio of technologies that's specifically suited to providing solutions to some of these big challenges within our portfolio. We provide additional conventional standard water treatment solutions as well, but that's part of our go-to-market strategy. In terms of our technologies, I'm conscious of the time here, so I don't have time to do a deep dive, but essentially we have a technology that helps us treat and remove some impurities from these wastewater, waste brine streams. So this is a patented technology, the IBC technology, and we also have a second patented technology that helps us recover products and minerals and reagents from some of these waste streams. So a beneficial processing so we can generate some revenue. We have a whole business model built around this technology portfolio. But I guess just to create a little bit of context here, technology is difficult, it's complex, but if you get it right on an industrial scale, it has an opportunity to completely transform how industries, large global industries operate. So we think the size of the prize is worth chasing. We've gone into this with our eyes wide open though. So I've been involved in commercializing technology for 20 years, worked with sort of many large companies to bring technologies to market. So when I commenced at Parkway 3 years ago, we very deliberately developed a capability where we can pilot, perform feasibility studies, and we've got global partnerships with Worley, a global engineering company, and an established partnership with Victoria University. So we can very quickly screen technologies, pilot, perform some studies, and have the capacity to deliver these projects. So this is very unusual capability to have in such a small company. So we think that's quite a significant and important capability we've developed. Just to provide a little bit of a sense of how disruptive these technologies could be and some of the traction we're generating. We recently, in April this year, entered into a landmark feasibility study. We were awarded by Shell, and I'd like to just provide just a couple of moments to give a little bit of a sense of how sort of transformative these technologies can be. So in the process of gas production, in this case, coal seam gas production, there's significant wastewater that's produced just in the state of Queensland. 55 billion litres of this wastewater is produced every year, and that contains salts, and there's no long-term solution for this problem. So despite it being part of the environmental conditions for the developers to come up with a solution, they've spent more than $100 million over a decade, and there's no viable solution. And in order to dispose of those waste streams, there are significant levies. So large captive market, lots of pressures, no alternative solution. So really quite a significant challenge. And this is a wastewater treatment plant owned by Shell, the largest operator in that CSG basin. Earlier this year, that operator Shell awarded us a feasibility study contract to perform a feasibility study based on one of our patented technologies. Once again, we're working with our strategic partners to deliver that feasibility study, and we're halfway through that at the moment. For a little bit of context, the feasibility study involves taking that waste brine stream that's highly problematic, reducing the volume, producing saleable products, and making that problem go away. So really quite a compelling proposition. As part of the piloting program, we have generated the products, saleable products from that waste stream. We've reduced the waste volume. We've identified a site to build this wastewater treatment plant with our partners at Shell, and really making some significant progress there. In terms of just to sort of highlight the value proposition for an existing scenario for the client, the CSG operator, they have to incur significant costs to dewater this brine, to dispose of this brine. And by treating it with our technology, there are still costs associated with that. But as a result, we generate products that we can sell and generate revenues that more than pays for the treatment of that waste, and also forgoes all these liabilities. So really quite a compelling business case, and really an example of how technology can be used to achieve better environmental but financial outcomes as well. That's a key part of our business model. I'm conscious of time, so I'm just going to fly through the last couple of slides. In addition to our technology division, we have a conventional water treatment part of our business, and that's a stepping stone to deliver our technologies. This enables us to provide integrated solutions. So not just the technology, but a solution for the client, because that's really what these complex projects require, a complex solution. The conventional part of our business is already generating revenues. We have significant operations, a large range of products, a dedicated team. So that's a part of the business that's generating significant traction. Early this year, we were awarded a contract to deliver a mine pit water treatment plant for a major mining company producing critical minerals. We delivered that sort of design, built, delivered, installed and commissioned 100% in-house. So this is some significant capabilities we've developed recently. All this information is available online, so I encourage everyone who's interested to review the presentation. And I guess lastly, we're generating significant traction. We're ISO accredited. We're an approved vendor for many large mining and energy companies that are ultimately the prospective users of our technology. So all this is a lot of validation that we're a credible, competent technology solution provider, being awarded contracts and taking those through to feasibility study, and hopefully based on those outcomes, delivering projects for credible partners. And I guess just to summarize, these are very large problems. They're only becoming more problematic, more ESG pressures. We've got a very high value, differentiated technology-based solution, a capable and competent team, valuable technologies that are strong IP protections, and really generating traction now in the market, both in the conventional and the technology part of our business. So we think we're really at the beginning of a very exciting journey to make those global energy mining industries a whole lot more sustainable. So apologies, I've flown through a whole lot of slides in a short period of time, but hopefully that provides a snapshot, an introduction to Parkway Corporate. Thank you.
Hey, thank you for the great presentation. I might just get you to stop sharing your screen. Wonderful. So one of our Zoom attendees has asked, so with lithium extraction happening globally, what are the long-term plans for PWN to enter into this market?
So it's something we do have some technology and capabilities in. The one comment I would make, I think this is a lot more complex than probably many people appreciate. Some of the most common sort of direct lithium applications are in geothermal projects, for instance, and I've worked on more than a dozen geothermal projects. I understand the space, but just overnight in California in the Salton Sea, for example, projects that were some of the largest US lithium sources are really becoming a little bit unstuck, talking about how complicated these brines are. So I guess for us, we're just trying to start off with things that within our immediate capabilities, things that we can execute. We just consider there to probably be inherent risks, not just technology risks. There's a whole lot of other complex process and commercial risks that I think at this stage we're not quite ready for just yet.
Okay, well, Baha, that's all we have time for today, but I would encourage webinar attendees to reach out by the contact details on the website. But thank you again for joining us.
Pleasure, thank you.
Next, we have a presentation from 5E Advanced Materials with the Nasdaq ticker code FEAM and the ASX ticker code 5EA, a company positioned to become a vertically integrated global leader in boron. To tell us more, joining us from New York, I will now hand you over to the Chief Marketing Officer, JT Starzecki. Good morning, or good evening for you.
Yeah, good evening, Jane. Thanks for having us. Are you controlling slides or am I controlling slides?
I am. I'll bring that up for you now.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Oh. Sorry, taking a bit of time. Now when you're ready.
All right. So as Jane mentioned, I'm JT Starzecki, the Chief Marketing Officer here at 5E Advanced Materials. And really what I want to talk about today is sort of our overall value proposition, which is 5E is sort of the new source of boron here in the United States. And really, it's the investment proposition playing into three megatrends. So when you look at sort of from a global perspective, what are we playing into? And Jane, you can actually flip through to probably slide, I think it's 3 or 4. There we go. What we really are is we are the opportunity to invest in one strategic supply, domestic strategic supply. So boron and our co-product of lithium plays into the types of defense applications and domestic supply opportunities. We are also a food supply megatrend. So boron and boric acid is absolutely something that plays into NPK and specialty fertilizers. So we have the opportunity to play in the food security megatrend. And then, of course, decarbonization. So the opportunity to have boron and lithium play into all types of EVs, all types of wind and solar technologies. So really what we're talking about is we're talking about the opportunity to play into these megatrends. One of the messages that I'd love to leave with the audience is the fact that the supply and demand economics and the pricing mechanics stay absolutely in our favor. So as we'll get through some of the slides, I'll show you what some of the supply and demand outlooks and forecasts look like, but then also the pricing that goes along with that and why we think that we are the next best, the next great thing in this particular space. And really our value proposition sort of falls in the fact that there are three things that our project has that very few projects offer globally. Is number one, we're in a consolidated market. So there's only two players in the boron space that control about 85% of the supply. So you've got the Turkish government and you've got a Rio Tinto project that has been operating for the better part of 100 years. That ultimately the deposit will expire and we've got to bring on additional supply. So we have a very consolidated market with very few projects that are on the radar. And we've only got one that's substantially permitted, which is us here at 5E Advanced Materials. Second to that, you've got a high value in use. So when you look at our project and you look at what we're building, you've got a lithium stream, you've got a boron stream, but more importantly, we are an advanced materials business, which means we've got second, third, and fourth generation products that we are developing as part of what we're building as an organization that will set us apart from other mining operations. And we've got a high barrier to entry, right? So to get a boron deposit, you need to have three things. So one, you have to have a volcanic activity, which ultimately creates the magma that contains boron. You've got to have an evaporite basin. So you've got to have basically an evaporated seabed. And then you also have to have geological faults. And so when you look at what that is and what the opportunities are, you don't see those deposits very frequent throughout the world. And so what we're bringing that opportunity to the market, which very few companies have. So if you can maybe skip through to the next couple of slides, Jane, I think probably go on to perfect. So let's talk about the mega trends. So let's talk first and foremost about food security. So boron is a well-known, well-accepted micronutrient that ultimately helps cell walls in plants. It helps increase yield. It ultimately increases the yield for a variety of crops. So you've got corn, you've got soybeans, you've got tomatoes, you've got large, not only high value crops, but you've got broadacre crops. And so boron goes into just about every NPK blend that is offered throughout the globe, whether it's a corn farmer in India or a soybean farmer in Brazil. Boron, along with zinc, are the two most consumed micronutrients. And of course, we've got the whole concept around, especially here in the US, we've got applications that play into domestic supply. So aerospace, space, pharmaceutical applications where boron is widely accepted and highly in demand. And then, of course, in the decarb space, right? So whether that's energy generation, whether that's energy efficiency or electrification, I think the message that we try and drive home with this particular slide is when you take a look at permanent magnets, you've got 2 parts rare earths and you've got 1 part boron. and one doesn't work without the other. There is no substitute for boron, and so we will absolutely fit into this whole decarbonization space. And then when you look at sort of the different sectors that we play into, we think that we have an absolutely world-class deposit, world-class project that that has a long mine life and will be feeding sectors that are absolutely starved for supply. So if you can maybe, so quickly, I'll get through. So for decarb, from a clean energy, clean tech, green tech perspective, right? Permanent magnets, as I mentioned, 2 parts rare earths, 1 part boron, right? It plays in anything from solar panels to the batteries that go into EVs, but also the ferroboron steel that actually will go into the construct of the car. And that has applications both in EVs, but also in vehicles that are in existence today. So we know that there's an absolute market for that. Flip forward. Food security. As I mentioned earlier, it's absolutely a space that we know that we can play into, and we're very excited about it. I personally have a background in specialty crop nutrients, and this is something that I'm excited to bring to the organization. We know that boron plays a lot of roles in precision ag. It also plays roles in crop, various NPK blends. It also plays roles in specialty fertilizer applications. You've got applications where boron is inputted with SOP, and it absolutely has a space in the food security application. If you want to move forward, and then of course, something that is very big in the US, the secure of critical supply chains. So what we're offering is the opportunity to not only harvest a mineral that is well in demand, but we're also offering an opportunity, and there's another slide moving forward that will showcase how we actually cut steps out of the supply chain. So typically, boron is mined, it's shipped off to China. Well, actually, it's processed, it's bagged, it's shipped off to China. It's then processed into 2nd, 3rd, and 4th generation materials. It's then brought back into first world nations like the US, and then ultimately ends up in defense applications. And what we're simply saying is that we've got the opportunity to cut out those very, so the strategic linchpins within the supply chain, and the opportunity to keep those materials here rather than shipping them off to be processed. So Jane, if you want to skip forward. Something that our Chief Technology Officer is also, and his team are building, are different types of applications that ultimately would drive shareholder value. So things like pharma, cancer treatment, nanotechnologies, advanced materials. We've got, you've seen probably in some of our press releases, you've got some of the programs that we're working on with Georgetown University, and some of the new studies that we have out there looking at different battery technologies, how to make the battery more efficient, ultimately use more boron, which is something that obviously we're going to encourage, but there's a lot of upside. And so one of the things that we often talk about is what space are we going to particularly play in? And we have a hard time narrowing it down, but that's an upside. So we've got an opportunity to play in all these different megatrends. We've got an opportunity to play in all these different future-facing technologies. But ultimately, we know that from a mining perspective, we've got a large-scale source of boric acid and a source of lithium that we know has a home, whether it's in the US or globally. But what we know is that we've got something that is substantially permitted, that we've got a small scale facility that will have mechanical completion by the end of the year, and will be commissioned in first quarter of next year, which ultimately means that we will have product flowing into the market with our commercial partners coming in the next sort of 4 to 5 months. Jane, if you could flip forward. So really quickly, and I am conscious of time, but it's a unique boron opportunity. We've got a duopoly supply market, as I mentioned earlier, 65% from the Turkish government, 20 10-ish%, it's actually a little bit higher, comes from Rio Tinto. The Turkish government actually has 73% of the world's reserve. So it's ultimately comes down to energy cost and processing costs, whether or not there's going to be more supply put into the market. Rio Tinto has been very upfront at the fact that their reserve is going to expire in 2042 after 100 years of operation. There's only 6 projects that are visible globally, and of those 6, only one is substantially permitted. That is 5E. We've got both federal, state, and county/local permits all in place, which is the construct that we're building under right now. And ultimately, we're targeting 500,000 tons of boric acid equivalents, and there will be, as an offshoot of that, several thousand tons of lithium carbonate as part of the production. Now, ultimately, that only fills about 5% of the global demand. But Jane, if you could flip forward really quick, talk about supply and demand dynamics. So in 2020, the market was circa 4.3 million tons. It's closer to 5 million tons right now. Credit Suisse released a study about a year ago that showed that even on the low end at 2 times growth, we're still talking about a market in 2030 that is circa 10-ish million tons. And if you've got a advanced case scenario where you look at 10 times growth, you've got a market that is circa 70 million tons. What we're seeing right now on the right-hand side of this slide is that the supply and demand imbalance is already in our favor. So in 2022, moving into 2023, we're at that tipping point where the demand will outpace the supply, and we only continue to see that increasing, which plays in our favor. If you move to the next slide, ultimately, if demand outpaces supply, the only thing that can happen is pressure on the price of the actual product. So even if we don't follow the same trajectory that lithium carbonate has shown, and we are somewhere around the rare earths price, we are still ultimately double from where we were 12 months ago. And right now, so when we scoped out the project a few years ago, we were somewhere around the $700 a ton price point. Prices right now sit around $1,450 a ton. We're hearing very substantial rumors that the price is going to increase here in fourth quarter to somewhere around $1,700 a ton. So ultimately, when you look at the supply and demand economics and the dynamics, and you look at what ultimately that's going to result in from a price perspective, we know that we've got a project that sets itself apart. So I'm conscious that I'm actually over time. We have more slides, but I'll pause there. Jane, if you've got any questions or anything that we can put out to the audience, I'm happy to take that now.
Absolutely, that's a great presentation. And for webinar attendees that are on the call, we actually did another presentation with JT the other day, which can be found on their website. I am going to jump into a couple of questions though. So you mentioned these 3 key global megatrends, and 5EA is positioned to sort of straddle these. Which are you most excited about?
So that's a great question. I think that all of them have a lot of merit, and I think that they're fantastic. And it's a dream opportunity to be able to sit and play in front of all of them. Personally, I have some passion around food security. I come from a specialty fertilizer background, spent a lot of time building a large-scale fertilizer mine. But ultimately, I think our value is going to frankly come in the domestic supply and the decarb market. And I would love to say that we will put every ton of boric acid into a specialty fertilizer around the globe. But I think ultimately it's wise to say that we're going to sit here, keep our product domestic, and help the ESG space here in the US.
Wonderful. And there's a lot of questions coming through, but just finally, so what should shareholders look forward to over the next coming months?
It's a great question. So I think some catalysts that we're gonna be releasing to the market fall in a couple of different buckets. Number one, they're going to come from an operations perspective. So as I mentioned, mechanical completion, commissioning of the operations, and then ultimately moving product in 2023 out to our commercial customers. That sort of leads into the second bucket, which is the commercial opportunities. So I think anybody that's been following our story is well aware of the Corning LOI that we have, right? Those conversations continue to increase and materialize, and we'll have product that we will put into sort of their R&D setting. So we're going to see things around commercial opportunities, additional R&D opportunities, and frankly, I mean, ultimately that leads to some sort of offtake agreement. I have some background in that, so I'm excited about that. And then, I think those are really the two buckets that it sits in from an operational and commercial perspective. So those will be the catalysts that'll come out into the market here in the coming months.
Wonderful. JT, thanks so much for your time today. We look forward to hearing further updates.
Jane, appreciate it.
Next, we are joined by Rob Sennett, Managing Director of Alicanto Minerals with the ASX ticker code AQI. To tell us more about their base metals exploration project in Sweden, I will hand you over to Rob. Good afternoon, Rob.
Hi, Jane. Thanks very much for that, and thanks for the intro, and thanks for putting on the conference. It's greatly appreciated. High level, Alicanto has got highly prospective copper, gold, and zinc silver projects based over in Sweden. I joined the company just a month ago, and I've got to say life has been pretty hectic to date. I'm just back from a trip to Sweden where I got a chance to see our operations, and also a chance to meet with our team over there, our high quality team, and also to meet with some of the local stakeholders. And in particular, pretty pleased to hear how supportive they are of our initiatives in their municipality. But maybe, Jane, if we can sort of turn to there's obviously the disclaimer on page 2 for your information, but on page 3, looking to sort of summarise the opportunity there as succinctly as I can. With respect to Sweden, it's a great place for us to have our operation. It's got a very rich mining culture. It's one of the bigger mining economies in the EU, and very interestingly, it's really slipped under the radar of many of the bigger resources companies around the world. Interestingly, in terms of the Fraser Institute, which rates jurisdictions, it rates in the top 20. So it's a great place for us to be on the ground doing business. Our two mines our two projects at Sala and Falun are only a couple of hours drive to the west of Stockholm, in what's known as the Bergslagen region, which is a very mining active area. It's got a couple of world-class mines there in Garpenberg, which is owned by Boliden, which is Sweden's largest mining company, as well as a mine called Zinkgruvan, which is owned by Lundin out of the US. So it's a very mining centric area, and as I say, pretty close to the main areas of Sweden, with lots of good infrastructure around. The other comment I'd also make about Sweden is, the one thing that I came away with is how pragmatic the community and really governments there seem to be. There's obviously a big focus on the green transition, but there's also a very, very strong desire for self-sufficiency. With the war going on there between Russia and the Ukraine, these guys are not a long way from the front lines there, and again, as I say, very focused on being self-sufficient in important things like critical minerals, and ultimately the products that Alicanto are going to provide. I'll speak about the team in a little bit, but the focus of the team to this point in time is to find operations that have or mines that have previously operated, and to acquire exploration around those mines as the basis on which to build new operations, and certainly Alicanto is a good example of that. The team's now acquired some pretty significant acreage around the two historic mines in Sala and Falun. And when you look at similar mines in the region, as I mentioned, Garpenberg and Zinkgruvan, these areas have very similar geology, and from all of the work that we've done to date, there is no doubt that we see mineralisation along strike and along depth from these mines, and we're really positive in terms of where that will hopefully deliver us in the not too distant future. We've only really owned these areas for a short time, and really only had the ability to do a limited drill program to date. But really, in that time, we've achieved a lot. We've redefined the geology and identified mineralisation pretty much in every hole that we've put down to date. Even at Sala, we're probably seeing better grades than those at Garpenberg, which again holds us in great store for where we can potentially go with that particular prospect. And again, pulling together a maiden resource in under 12 months, which has got over 300,000 tonnes of zinc and over 15 million ounces of silver in only 12 months is really a testament to the team and the great effort that they've managed to put in to date. And as I mentioned, it's really a great platform for us moving forward. In terms of that maiden resource, I mentioned there the high-grade core at 6% zinc equivalent. That really, in terms of some of the recent intercepts that we put out, really gives us a lot of excitement in terms of what this resource might ultimately look like. What we've been able to do in 12 months and what we're hoping to do over the next 24 months is pretty exciting. And that high grade core is hopefully a key part of all of that in terms of where the ultimate grades could be. Now, ultimately, that sort of grade will be the difference between a good mine and a great mine. As I say, there's been very little work done on these prospects in the last since the mines were closed. It really creates a huge opportunity for us in terms of using modern techniques on a systematic basis. We've identified numerous targets at both Sala and Felon, and it's now just a question of getting that work done and turning that knowledge into resource. The green economy, I mean, that gets mentioned, time and time again, but it is absolutely critical. And Sweden, from the time I spent there, very, very focused on this green transition. And really the critical metals such as zinc and copper and also silver for that matter are going to play key roles with respect to how that green transition and to new forms of energy are going to take place, and that recognition is not lost on the government in terms of how we can play a role with respect to all of that. And certainly in those discussions, lots of questions in terms of how they can help us in terms of getting up and running. I did mention the team, and both the team at the corporate level at Alicanto, which I've known for a long time, and it gives me great pleasure to join and work with. But Ray Shorrocks there, who's chairman of Alicanto, is a past chairman of Bellevue Gold, and obviously that's a great example of taking what was an unloved deposit and turning it into one of the darlings of the gold sector here in Australia. And also Steve Parsons, a consultant to the company, currently the current MD of Bellevue Gold. These are great guys to have around that have done all this before and have a great track record in terms of creating value from exactly what we have here at Alicanto. And I should add to that the in-team country, Eric Lundström, who is our chief geologist and who's driving all of our programs in Sweden, is actually the ex-chief geo of Boliden and who is responsible for what Garpenberg is today, and is recognised as one of the best underground polymetallic mines in the world. And he's very, very confident that what we have at Alicanto is as good as what he started with when he was looking for Garpenberg. So look, it's in summary, it's a fantastic opportunity. It's a great opportunity for me, sort of having joined the company and really now looking to sort of turn what we have there into something that's very meaningful and hopefully create a lot of value for our shareholders along the way. Thanks, Jane. If we can go to the next slide. There's a quick corporate summary of us. Current market cap is just under $20 million. But what I would say is that we have a very strong and loyal shareholder base. We've just raised $3 million, which is a reflection of that. In raising that money in a pretty tough market was a great effort. And what that has done is set us up for our programs coming up over the next 6 to 12 months. And there's the team, which I've already touched on as well. Thanks, Jane. As I said, Sweden, long mining history. It's interesting as regulations have started to free up. you've really started to see the eyes of the world sort of turn to Sweden. And at Alicanto, we've really got we've got a head start on what's happening there, and have actually put our foots on some pretty interesting ground. Really, that's come about from Eric, our geologist, and also Peter George, our executive director up there in Sweden. Both of those guys worked for Boliden for a long time, knew the ground very well, and have pegged that ground, and as I say, have provided a fantastic opportunity for Alicanto to sort of come in at the right time and pull all of that together. The other thing I'd sort of note, as you can see on that map, we're not a long way from Stockholm. Which means that the infrastructure in the area in terms of rails, roads, ports, airports is all fantastic. Plenty of water, an educated workforce from which we can draw from. It's if you're going to do business anywhere in the world, Sweden is a great place to start. Thanks, Jane. I mentioned I won't spend much time on this green transition, but as I did mention before, this push for self-sufficiency going on in Sweden at the moment is very, very real. And again, the attention that we're getting in terms of bringing these projects on, bringing them on forward is great. I mean, we're really there at the perfect time. Looking to develop underground mines in a sustainable way is got very welcome ears over there in Sweden. And as I say, the questions are really, what can they do to help more so than anything else? Thanks, Jane. So as I mentioned, we've got two key projects over in Sweden. Sala, as a earlier mine, it produced over 200 million ounces of silver at grades as high as 7,000 grams a tonne, which is pretty extraordinary. And Falun, which produced 28 million tonnes, which included copper at 4% and gold at 4 grams a tonne. But those in today's terms are fantastic, and great places for us to sort of start exploring to build new mines in that area. Sala has probably been at the forefront of our attention, and that's where we've delivered that resource in less than 12 months. And as I say, we've got that resource with over 300,000 tonnes of zinc and 15 million grams of silver is an interesting place to be. Again, based on what we're seeing in this Bergslagen region, the deposits are sort of open at depth and along strike. Sala to date has only been drilled down to sort of 290 metres and Falun to 500 metres. So, when you look at what's going on in those regions, it's significantly deeper than that today. So as we start to apply, more modern exploration techniques, we're pretty excited in terms of what we might find. And as I mentioned, Eric, the ex-Boliden geologist, is pretty comfortable that what he's seeing there is as good, if not better, than what he saw when Garpenberg sort of came into play. Thanks, Jane. Look, I apologise a little bit for this slide. It's a little bit crude, but what it is meant to demonstrate there is what we've got as it sits next to Garpenberg. So Garpenberg currently has over 73 million tonnes in resource, and you can see those the various ore bodies there in that Garpenberg deposit. We've only touched the surface at Sala. It's the same geology. It's a large limestone reef with the upper lead silver strata and a lower zinc strata. Garpenberg's been operating for hundreds of years. It's now operating down to a depth of 1.4 kilometres. Really, I think we've only just touched the surface when it comes to the work that we're currently doing at Sala. As I say, open at depth, open along strike. The fact that most of the reef is currently doesn't even have a drill hole in it, provides great excitement for us. Thank you, Jane. So what are we doing there at Sala at the moment? What we've got on this slide here, you can see in the centre of the slide in the grey there, the old Sala workings, and to either side of that, we've got the extensions to Sala to the north, and what we call the Prince Lode to the south, where the current resource is stored. We've in the areas marked 5 to the north there and 2 to the south of the Prince Lode. That's where we're drilling, or we will drill this year as we look to extend that resource. And those other areas are more conceptual drill targets that we have, where we're going to be looking for repeats of that Sala mineralisation. Thanks, Jane. This slide just shows you what that high-grade core looks like. There's been some really interesting drill holes that have gone into that part of the deposit, and I particularly draw your attention to that first drill hole at 4.7 metres at 24% zinc and 875 grams per tonne silver. Strikes like that are extraordinary, and there's no reason to believe that we won't be getting more of those as we continue on. Our plan is to be back drilling these holes when our drilling approvals come through, which are expected in the next month. Thanks, Jane. On this slide, it's a top level view of that slide I just showed. Those shallow holes to the west of the old Sala mine there, and to the south of the Prince Lode is where we're looking to expand the resource, and then looking for the Sala repeats to the west. I mean, if we hadn't found the resource where it currently is, those holes that we're looking to drill to the west are probably where we would have started the drilling at Sala in those untested areas there. Those inclines and declines that we're sort of looking at over there are where we would expect to find some pretty interesting material. Probably the higher grade silver will be in that area compared to the higher grade zinc, which where we're drilling in the south and the west of the current Sala deposit. Thanks, Jane. And as with respect to Sala back there, again, Sala is where the company sort of started its journey in Sweden. It's in terms of the copper gold side of things, it's pretty exciting what we have there. Sala probably remains the key focus in terms of how much we've been able to do, and in a very short space of time, and what we can achieve in the next sort of 12 to 24 months. But Falun remains a real focus for the company. A copper gold project with those sort of grades is certainly something that you can't ignore. And while we're waiting for those approvals for the drilling permits to come through at Sala, we're back drilling at Falun now. And looking forward to some interesting results coming out of that drilling in coming months. Thanks, Jane. So look, maybe a quick summary, and I do appreciate I've run over time a little bit here, but look, in terms of where we sit at Alicanto and why we're so excited about where we are, Sweden is a fantastic place to be. It's the home of some of world-class polymetallic deposits. And the geology that we have at our deposits are as good as we see at those major mines. And again, the support we're getting at this particular time in terms of the green transition, our ability to provide critical metals at a time where Sweden is very focused on some pretty tough targets in terms of becoming, removing its focus on fossil fuels, etc. So we can play a real role in terms of where that economy is growing. We've got great brownfield projects, that we're drilling in the head frame of some of the what have been very substantial mines in the past. All the drill holes that we've put down to date have discovered mineralisation. It's now just a question of time and money as we move forward with our exploration programs. As I say, the opportunity, from that we have in terms of applying new techniques as part of that program, again, is very exciting. look, we got the right team to do it. The guys in country have done this before. They've been successful in terms of discovery, and we're working within the same types of ore bodies that they've worked in the past. So again, high hopes in terms of that for the success of these exploration programs that we've got in place. And then the Alicanto corporate team, these are guys that have got a proven track record, that have done it all before, and hopefully we will do it again here at Alicanto. Thanks, Jane. That brings it to the end, and happy to take some questions.
Rob, that was a great presentation. We've had a lot come through, so let me jump into them. So you've identified numerous high priority drill targets across both of the brownfields projects, and you did mention that the approvals are imminent. So what size kind of drill program should we expect you to kick off with?
Yeah, so we've just raised $3 million, and you'd expect most of that, or in fact, the vast majority of that will go into the ground. So we've got a drill program planned out over the next 6 months. And given it's quite early, it's not, while we have a pretty good idea about where we'd like to put those holes, you have to remain relatively fleet of foot as well. Depending upon what results we get from that drill program means that we're always going to be thinking about what the next best step would be in terms of creating value for shareholders.
Wonderful. And just now to the Greater Falun Copper Gold Project. So there's walk-up drill targets, and you are drilling at the moment. So when can shareholders look forward to those assays coming through?
Yeah, look, as I say, we're in the middle of that program at the moment, and we will, as that program, comes through, in the next month or so, hope we will be in a position to update the market.
Wonderful. I'm going to ask you the same question I've asked everybody on the program today, but what are you most excited about, and what can shareholders look forward to sort of over the coming 3 to 6 months?
Yeah, as I think, hopefully, as I sort of mentioned in that presentation, I mean, to start with what we have in Sweden is fantastic. Sweden is a great place to be, a place that's very focused on pushing forward with its, developing its mineral endowment. We're in the best part of Sweden where there's lots of infrastructure. All of the work that we've done to date has been highly successful in terms of what we found at the bottom of the drill rig. So, I would hope over the next sort of 12 months or so, we've expanded the resource. We've identified, more mineralization from some of those conceptual targets we've got. Yeah, and as I say, over the next 12, 24 months, really start to define what a mine is going to look like in that part of Sweden, and then hopefully the next base metals mine in Sweden.
Well, Rob, with these modern exploration techniques that you're implementing, and I'm actually a shareholder myself, I'm very much looking forward to the future of AQI. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
And thank you all for joining us today. So recordings of today's presentations will be available online in the coming days on brokerbriefing.com and YouTube. We look forward to hosting you again soon.